What's going on, everyone?
What's up, Mundo?
What's going on, man? Hey, David, how are you? I'm doing all right. Well, this isn't my Zoom, so I'm gonna wait for Chai, I think, is gonna kick this off. So we'll just wait a few minutes and then I guess we can get started. Hey, Lucy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about you? I know you're not feeling well. Thank you for being here and doing all this for us.
Yeah, not feeling the greatest, but the show must go on.
Always.
Yep. There's never a good time to be sick, so it happens.
I came home from Indiana with a terrible head and chest cold. I was sick for 3 weeks, but I'm
Oh
better
my
now.
gosh.
So I'm sending you good vibes.
I guess you're allergic to Indiana.
No, I think it's the airplane.
Oh, okay.
It's easy to get sick when you're flying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I that usually happens. I'm surprised I didn't get sick going to all the creative like meetups, like especially the Chicago one. There was so many people.
Mundo, you should come to the Texas one.
Oh, I wish I wish I could go to all of them, honestly. I
Oh,
already have all my travel booked up for the rest of the foreseeable future. But I used to live in San Antonio, so pretty
oh,
familiar
really?
with
I
the area.
didn't know
Yeah, that's
that.
where I'm originally. Yeah, I'm originally from San Antonio. I lived there for the first 18 years of my life. Went to Alamo Heights High School. I don't know how familiar you are with
Hmm,
that area, but
know that.
that's where yeah, that's where I went. So we
Awesome.
played New Braunfels quite a bit in high school baseball. So
So why did you move?
I just went to college and just, life takes you in different directions. I got my first job working at a pharmaceutical company, and that's what brought me to Indianapolis. And I've just been here ever since. That was about 13 years ago.
That's awesome.
But I'm sure San Antonio's changed a lot. At least
Oh,
whenever I go
yeah.
back, it's
It's
changed a lot since then.
horrible. I hate it. I even hate driving to San Antonio.
Hello, hey guys, how are you? I'm so sorry. Just I had a quick hiccup with my computer. Small hiccup with my computer. I had to quickly restart it. All right. Hey Mundo, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on
I'm good,
board.
good. Give me just a second and we'll get started. Awesome, guys. Lot of great turnout.
Man, Mundo, you look like a pro.
Yes,
Thanks, man.
You
that's a
look like,
great setup, man.
yeah, you look like pace number two. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I'm working on it. I'm working
That's,
on it.
that's nice.
If you could see the mess in front of me, though, you
You
you would
mean
say otherwise.
you mean Mundo number one, basically.
No, perfect.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I'm
also
working
keep
on
my
clearing
mess
up all that stuff.
outside of the camera view always. That's a great tip right there.
Yeah.
All right. And let me see. Oh, it's already recording. Perfect. Come on
Hi,
then.
Chai.
Hey, how are you? Oh,
Good.
Adrian. Sorry, I was just about to call you
How
out.
how are you?
I'm good. Been a while.
Good,
Need to
good.
come out there on your
I
side of the
know.
world.
You keep saying you're going to come to my meetups. You never do.
No, no, we are gonna do better with meetups this year. Oh my God, this year has been overwhelming. I have no idea.
I can
All
only
right, there
imagine.
I am.
Overwhelming in a good way, I hope.
Oh, very good way, very good way. Okay, we set this up. the right way and we'll get
Like you got a
started.
lot of stuff working with Alexis too, so that must be amazing.
Yeah, that is for next year. So we were working on curriculum and all these things this year. We have our cohort almost full and getting started with that too.
Amazing.
All right. And I'm trying to move the. Okay. So Mundo, do you have anything to present or you're gonna just I mean, our style is Q&A.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything to present, but
Okay.
I've done it enough times to just go in whatever direction that we want to go. So I'm
Okay.
open book
Perfect.
today.
I like that style.
Yep.
I, I mean, I'm enjoying it so much that people think I'm on tangent, like going on tangents all the time. But hope those are valuable. Okay, so I mean, Mundo has so much to offer, guys. I mean, this is my favorite topic. I mean, I'm not just saying it uh,
He
to
tells all his guests this, but thank you. I'm
yes.
just
So
kidding.
my point is, I mean, I have been in sub 2 community for over, I mean, from almost first couple months I joined. So almost day one, and Pace and us have been part of other communities before that. But at that time, market was like shifting uh, in a weird way, and we had literally pulled back, and we had stopped. I mean, when COVID hit, we had literally stopped our wholesaling marketing because we didn't know where this was going to go. And then, I mean, it just went crazy. We started it, and we bought more properties than I mean, we ever did in 1 year, those times, like those 2 years. So right after that, all the knowledge I gathered from Pace Morby communities and I mean, because we knew Pace put us on for the underwriting. I mean, uh, uh, Zoom calls. That time there was no underwriting call. I was the first one to start it. I mean, first couple calls we had like 600 people attend underwriting calls,
Wow.
and Pace was like, "Oh my God, like that's crazy! Like that many people need underwriting." And then he put me with Bo. We designed the course, and I mean, it was a great ride. But along the way, I got known as a creative underwriter. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that. So I got involved in so many deals, and I couldn't, I mean, help but notice that people are doing so many things wrong, not to mention, but illegally, almost borderline fraud. And I mean, I used to warn people this is going to go wrong. And so many things I called that went, I mean, so wrong until I mean, actually found out about Mundo a few months ago. And then I pushed Jada to go and attend his master class. And oh my God, this has, I mean, we speak the same language because I had to literally go. I mean, I wish I had Mundo in my life when I was starting out because nobody was teaching it right. So I had to find this attorney out of Dallas called Scott Horn. Do you know him, Mundo?
Who?
Scott Horn out of Dallas.
Yes. Yeah. I've had a few conversations with him. Yep.
So I sat down with Scott several times to come up with what you have mastered at this point. So this knowledge is beyond valuable. I mean, this is crazy important. If you plan to stay in this creative community and you really want to master the creative strategies, what we are about to discuss today I mean, is non-negotiable. You have to know this. Without that, do not step another foot into creative world. So with that being said, welcome Mundo, welcome to our podcast. This is a Flex podcast and Underwriting Power Hour community where we underwrite deals every other weekend, and we have guests every other weekend. Um, and our like entire focus is for people to structure their deals properly legally without crossing the lines, and that's where you come in. So thank you for coming. We are excited to have you. I was so excited that I actually wrote down questions this time to ask you because I want to know so
Okay,
much.
love it.
Uh, so let's get started. If anyone has any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat for Mundo, for myself, for anybody else here. We got some amazing guests here. One of my new business partners in a way is Justin. Justin Barber is here. He is part of our DSCR loan officer community, and he's taking on a bigger role with us. And we are super excited to have him. Adriana, of course, I've known him and a lot of people here. Manuel, go ahead. If you have a quick question, we
Yeah,
can get
quick
into it.
question. No, a question. I just want to know what's Mondo. What does he do? Is he a lawyer?
Yes, we are getting into that in just a sec now. Okay, so Uh, with that segue, let's get into what Mondo does. And so, Mondo, for people that don't know you, who is Mondo? Mundo, I'm sorry for mispronouncing. Who is
No,
Mundo?
you're good.
Where does Mundo come from? And what's your background and what you do right now, just in briefly?
Yeah, so if you can't see, I'm a big baseball fan. Grew up playing baseball my whole life, originally from San Antonio, Texas. So I've had, and I went on to play Division I baseball. So I've had my name just butchered all across America. So that doesn't phase
I
me
feel you.
whatsoever. And so I actually work full time during the day still. So I am a CFO.
Wow.
So I'm the CFO of a trucking company, and we actually kind of more of this logistics enterprise. So we have a trucking company. I also own a few of the companies. So one of the companies I own is a freight brokerage, and then I also own a diesel repair mechanic shop, and that's kind of like all tied into what we do. And then we have a few commercial real estate properties that we operate as well as kind of like our little enterprise. But I first started my career in big pharma, and I left that to go work where I am now, and it's been a great fit. But then I joined Sub 2 probably about 2.5 years ago, and I decided that my niche would be Morby Methods. I got into the community and was trying to figure out like, hey, how do I like, everything I do, I've always had the mindset of like, how do I like rise to the top? And just like it could be sweeping the floors. How am I going to be the best floor sweeper I can be? Right. It doesn't really matter what it is. I just want to be really good at what I do. And so that was the niche that I focused on was Morby Methods. So that was the first deal I did. And I've gone on to do well over 80 now. And that's like my main focus is just doing Morby Methods and really just educating. I've made every mistake you could probably think of in Morby Methods, except like, well, I can't say every mistake because I've seen some mistakes being made that I'm just like, holy cow. But generally speaking, I've made some mistakes along the way and I've learned, and each deal that I've done has been kind of like a continuous iteration process of improvement, and which has led to how I, do more methods now, which I'm sure, maybe have some questions on like what that looks like. I'm also, so I'm in everything actually. I'm in sub 2, I'm in top tier TC, I'm in owners club, I'm in zero down. I mean, you name it, you name something, Gator, I'm in Gator Elite. You name something, I'm in it. I've been all in since day one on Pace Morby Universe. It's been life changing for me. I've learned so much from the community, and just it's honestly it's been life changing. So I mean that's kind of a little bit of background about me. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm mostly a buy and hold investor too. I don't wholesale, at least currently. That's not something that I do. So mainly it's just been looking for deals for myself and then partnering with other people that want to do deals as well. I started like within my first year, I did a lot of TC transactions. I've done over 100 transactions. So not just Morton methods, like sub 2 wraps, like really anything, within creative finance I've done. And that gave me a lot of really good hands-on experience, but mainly my focus is Morby methods.
No, that is amazing. And what I really relate to about what you said is I focus on buy and holds. So when I first started in real estate in 2014, my, I mean, I did not, well, I have been entrepreneurial in general in my life. I just never saw real estate as a business until I entered with the mindset of an investor, bought my first rental, and then I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. I mean, you can buy discounted properties, you can do all these things. So I started wholesaling with the mindset of buying discounted properties for myself. I used to sell only the ones that I couldn't buy, or I mean, if I didn't have bandwidth. So I love that philosophy. And the more sophisticated you get with holding real estate, the better your opportunities are, or rather your whole um horizon is going to expand because you have gone through that experience. I mean, buying them, either cash, creative, doing loans on them, there's so much to it along the process. So, with that, so for those who don't know Morby method, or as I call it, and I don't know if it's a term in the market, I call it reverse seller carry. Before I knew it was called Morby method, or before Pace coined it as Morby method, I used to call it reverse seller carry. I don't know if it's a thing, but how do you precisely define it? How is it different from traditional sub two or seller finance, or is it a stack on top?
Yeah, no. So, I heard Pace on a Zoom just about a month ago, or maybe a little bit further back. He was saying that there's it's now being called a lot of different things, but his preference is still to call it Morby methods. He doesn't really like calling it, stack method or seller carry or like, really anything else. So I'm always respectful of Pace, and I always call it just Morby method. At one point, I was starting to call it a different thing because I think Morby methods were kind of getting a bad perception. I think that's why it kind of spun off into like people trying to rebrand it into something else to make it like less taboo. But ultimately, I think some of that came from just knuckleheads, don't know what they're doing, and calling up title companies and saying, hey, can you do Morby methods? And like that's not really the right approach to take, because Pace has a lot of Pace obviously has an incredible following, right? But he also has a lot of haters. So you could probably go on find video, like there's people that literally make it their like mission to hate on Pace. And so like if you just go out and say Morby method, I'm sure there's some videos that say, oh, Morby method is a scam and it's mortgage fraud and all that stuff. It can be mortgage fraud, and we could talk about that in a little bit, but it's not mortgage fraud if you do it properly. And so I think that's why it kind of gravitated towards like calling it stack method, or I don't even know what I can't think of the name. I think it's like preferred equity or some like other stuff that it's called. So for me, I always reference it just Morby method just to pay respect to Pace because that's what he asked. But as far as like what is it? It's a great strategy when the seller has high equity. It doesn't have to be only a situation where the seller has high equity. It definitely can be a situation where the seller has limited equity, but most people are using this strategy when the seller has high equity and they're willing to do seller financing, except they want a large down payment. So that kind of goes against creative finance in general because everyone in creative finance is using creative finance to get into a deal for as little money out of pocket as possible. Most traditional lending opportunities, you're looking at a 20 to 30% down payment. Well, creative finance is a way that you can get in for 5%, 6%, 10%, right? So you're obviously getting in at a much cheaper entry point. So when you have a situation where a seller wants 30% or 40% or 50% as their down payment, that kind of goes against initially what creative finance is. But the Morby method strategy is a way to still come into the or come out of the deal with net zero out of your pocket. And in some cases, you can structure it to where you can even get paid at closing. And then we can talk about, what you should do with that and how to, be smart about that. But essentially, let's say the seller wants a large down payment, but they're willing to do seller financing. What you would do is you would find a DSCR lender that is willing to serve as that down payment. So seller wants 40%, they're willing to carry 60%. You can come in and give that seller that 40% down payment from the DSCR lender. So really, when it's all said and done, the net effect, it doesn't come out of your pocket per se, depending on how you structure it. But that is basically the strategy that you're using where you're getting seller financing on the back end, but on the front end, you are purchasing the property normally, just like anybody else. So I think where people get, at least how I do it in two separate, like distinct transactions. And the last workshop we did, I had our attorney there, and she had mentioned something that um, I thought like really was a light bulb moment for me. And I never really thought about it in this way. And I'll get to that in a second. But you're essentially purchasing the property outright, like in the first transaction. You're getting a DSCR loan. You're bringing cash to close, either you as the buyer or you as your, if you partner with someone on the deal that has the capital, you guys partner together. You're just buying the property. There's nothing creative about that. The creative part is when you come in a second transaction after close and you are able to refinance your equity out of the property. So that down payment that you put in, you could either think of it as more of like a HELOC. You know how most people will get a lot of people will get a HELOC on their property. What they're doing is they're pulling their equity out of the property, right? And they're getting, whatever amount they're getting for home renovations or whatever. This is a very similar thing where you're purchasing the property. You, as the buyer or the buyer team, have to inject equity into the transaction. You close on the deal, and then in a separate transaction, you're actually refinancing your equity back out of the property. And there's a couple of different ways you can do that. But one thing that stuck out for me when our attorney was talking about it's really a separate business transaction. The seller is deciding that, hey, I'm selling this property. And after I sell this property, I want to, provide a loan in a business transaction to, this buyer for, for that deal, right? So you're really on the front end completing a normal transaction. It's not creative at all. The creative part is on the second transaction, and the whole reason why you have to do this is because most lenders don't allow seller financing in the transaction. So the goal is to partner with DSCR lenders that don't restrict seller financing, or I'm sorry, don't restrict second positions, or they have a very good understanding of what's going on. But even if you're fully transparent and they know exactly what's going on, they're not going to allow seller financing. Now, in single family is mainly what I'm talking about. They're not going to allow seller financing in the closing of their transaction. You're going to have to buy the property outright. And then the creative part on the back end is finding the lenders that don't restrict you doing that on the back end with a refinance of your equity or HELOC or however you want to phrase it. So that's kind of like a high level overview of what Morby methods are.
So, I mean, you already spoke about the capital stack breakdown briefly. So about that, couple questions, and feel free to let me pull up. Okay, so feel free to drop any questions you guys got along the way. From my side, the part where there are two transactions, okay, and that is completely clean, kosher, no problems from based on my research as well. So however, most people that are attracted towards Morby as a deal happen to not have any down payment of their own, uh, and they tend to bring, I mean, they may be liquid in other ways, but if they don't have any down payment to bring, they often bring a capital partner. And I get a lot of, so I happen to be a hard money lender in Texas, and Jada and I have a DSCR brokerage that is nationwide. So we facilitate a lot of Morby methods, and we follow a lot of what Mundo's teachings are, to make sure everybody stays within the bounds of the law. So, but in that part where you're bringing a capital partner to the deal and you're creating a partnership agreement temporarily to close the deal, and that agreement later gets dissolved from my understanding. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the legalities around that scenario?
Yeah. I'm not aware of any case law currently that maybe speaks to this exact type of situation, but unfortunately, I have been in enough lawsuits to know, because I've been in business for 10 years. I mean, our company has sued a lot of people for just various wrongdoings because this is me getting off topic, but our majority owner, he's more of like a handshake kind of guy. Well, sometimes that doesn't work in business. And if you don't paper things up and document things, that's how lawsuits happen when you don't have clear agreements. And he always wants to see the best in everyone. And sometimes that gets us into trouble when, the other party doesn't honor their agreements. For example, we bought a company and they were supposed to pay us for maintenance. They ended up screwing us over $600,000 on maintenance that they did not reimburse us for, so we had to sue them. We're actively suing them right now. So my point of that is that I have enough involvement in lawsuits to kind of have a general understanding of how it works,
How law
right?
works. Yep.
Yeah, correct. So when we talk about that scenario, as far as the partnership and role of a transactional, what people call as transactional lender, I think it should probably be more referred to as a capital partner. You're partnering with someone on the deal. Now, one way that that can be done is you're partnering on the operating agreement and you're a member of the LLC, and there are terms in your operating agreement that state what an exit or dissolution of the partnership looks like, whether that, they receive their capital plus 2% or whatever that operating agreement says. That operating agreement is sent to the lender. You're very transparent in that. And to kind of sum things up, honestly, where people go wrong in Morby methods, it's from a lack of transparency. If you're just transparent with all parties involved, you're probably not going to have a lot of problems. But in that scenario, let's say you partner with someone that has the capital, they're on your operating agreement, they're a partner on the deal, whether that be 2%, 5%, 10%, whatever, right? Every lender is going to have different requirements. And when I'm sourcing lenders, I'm having these open conversations of like, hey, I'm the buyer, I'm the operator, I have a partner, and they're mainly the funding person, right? Like they're the capital partner. They don't want to be a guarantor of the loan, but they're in the deal. They're going to be on the operating agreement, and those are some of the questions you want to ask when you're sourcing, the DSCR lender, because lenders don't. There are a lot of lenders that don't allow that, and
Yep.
you won't be able to get a loan with that lender, obviously. But there are plenty of lenders that do allow that. You just have to structure it in accordance with their terms. But I think the gray area of that type of partnership is when you're involved on the operating agreement, you close on the deal, and then you're gone, right? Like then you come off the operating agreement, you guys execute your exit partnership, whatever the terms are in your operating agreement, then you're gone and you go and do something else, right? Well, when, usually this is only going to happen when shit hits the fan, because, if nothing happens and if you pay the mortgage and everyone continues to be paid, you're probably not going to have much legal risk at all.
Yeah.
I think the problem with that is a good attorney is going to point at your intent. That's what they're going to be looking at. They're going to be looking at, what was your intent of this? Yes, did you meet the legal requirements of the lender by being on the operating agreement? You did, right? But then right after closing, 2 days later, you came off the operating agreement. So your intent was to mislead the lender the entire time, right? And this all comes back to what your documentation is. Can you prove that you've, had this open dialogue with your lender? And if they're the ones telling you how to structure this, and you have documentation on how to prove that, you're going to be in a better spot to protect yourself. But there is some inherent risk, I do believe, of someone being a capital partner at closing and then all of a sudden they're gone. So one way avoiding that is you could make them a true partner, right? Like keep them as a partner. Your operating agreement says they're a 2% partner, and maybe they stay on as a 2% partner. That is one way to avoid this misinterpretation of intent, because there is no intent other than them being a partner, because that's what they are, and they
Yes.
continue to be a partner. But when you have someone in and out, there definitely is some risk in that type of scenario. I'm not saying it's definitely, I don't think it's illegal, but if you got into a situation, which again, I know from experience, attorneys want to win, right? They are trained to argue their position. It doesn't matter if their position is right. They're going to use every piece of law that they have in every situation to twist facts into their favor. So you could be completely right, completely did nothing wrong, and you just played the role of a capital partner. But if things went sideways, if the operator defaulted on the loan, now it's in foreclosure, now the seller's suing, all those different scenarios, that attorney that's going to be prosecuting that buyer is going to bring every single person into that deal, and they're going to shine a huge massive light and try to twist every single thing that happened and paint everybody as the villain, even
Exactly.
though that's not true, right? You were just an innocent bystander of that. And that's, to some extent, if you're doing a lot of those types of transactions, you just have to know, like, that's a risk that you're taking.
So, from capital partner standpoint, I mean, I want to talk to the capital partners here today that if you are a regular Morby method capital partner like myself, one of the things that Mundo mentioned, I would like to highlight is, and my lawyer and Mundo, I mean, I'm so glad that we are on the exact same page in terms of that. So my lawyer, Scott Horn, tells me that if you are writing an agreement, and again, this I'm saying, whatever I'm telling you, I don't myself follow it sometimes for multiple reasons, and I'll get into that. But ideally, if you sign an agreement with someone, keep that agreement in place, and but there's got to be some trust for on the borrower's part, because some borrowers think that, oh, now I just gave away 25% of my LLC to this guy. What if he comes after this property, which I actually can, because I am on paper a partner. So as long as they understand that I am a capital partner facilitating this, and I have a reputation that I don't do, I mean, things like that. So keeping that agreement in place for a decent amount of time where it is construed as a real partnership is the advice that I have been given. Again, I'm not an attorney. This is not an advice of
Yeah.
any sort.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
for that reason, what I end up doing is I mm, like have my borrower sign a dissolution agreement, which I myself dissolve it at a later date. When I have seen that borrower successfully making payments for 6 months or more, then I dissolve it and send it back to the borrower, and borrower is, I mean, I'm no longer part of the partnership. But some borrowers insist that I dissolve it right after, and it's hard conversation sometimes. So I end up having to dissolve it right after. So that leads me to one question for you, Mundo, is great. I mean, your thoughts about how lawyers think and how the law works. I love that part. So I would love to dig a little deeper. If something were to go wrong, if shit hits the fan one day, what is the worst case scenario for a capital partner? Do they just end up having to pay off the loan and buy the property? If borrower goes down, then everything's fine, or someone's going to come after them for wrongdoing? Uh,
Yeah,
just
no, that's a great
hypothetical.
question.
Again, none of us are lawyers here. Don't
Correct. Yeah,
use this
obviously I'm
as
not,
advice.
can't give legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, but honestly, I've had conversations with my lawyer on this. Like, I don't really see major risk in that type of scenario outside of one thing that I'll mention in a second. But, if you were a 5% partner or 10% or whatever equity partner, and you're not the guarantor on the loan, there is no recourse against you. Like, what are they going to come after? You're not even a guarantor of the loan, right? So The one thing that could happen is you lose the asset, right? So if you were a true partner and you planned on having that equity at some point, that's gone. So that's one potential thing. But I think the bigger concern legally, worst case scenario, is you're going to have an attorney bill that's probably going to be quite large. Like that's, in my opinion, like I don't think as long as you were doing your part and you were acting in good faith and you weren't doing, anything nefarious, I personally don't think you have much to worry about, but you will have to defend yourself. I've been parties in lawsuits where we were wronged, but we still spent 200 grand fighting it.
Oh my God.
And we had no, someone, we had a company that it was a partnership. Everyone plays a role in a partnership. There was a couple of guys, there was three guys that served as the sales arm. Well, they decided to just steal the whole business overnight, and they thought that that was okay, so we sued them. At the end of the day, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees, and we just ended up settling for 50% of the cash in the business. So the only people that won were attorneys. So really,
Wow.
I think your biggest risk is just having to defend yourself and prove that you're right, honestly, because
I
I
mean, if you
don't.
are a borrower, if you're buying a Morby method deal, choosing the right capital partner is very important. And I'm gonna touch on like two topics for that. What Mundo just mentioned, like that reason is very important. I mean, the way of so transactional lending is a great way of making active income, and I'm not discouraging anybody from doing that. But transactional lending has multiple things underneath that. Like one is obviously a regular wholesale transaction, and the wholesaler doesn't want to disclose the fees, and you come in as a transactional lender. Then there are transactional lenders because there are two different escrow companies, all kinds of scenario, and then one of the main ones is when a Morby situation comes into play. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, my door, kids opened it. Um, so in case of normal scenarios, you have a very limited risk, but especially in case of Morby method, you are running a huge risk. And if you don't have the right capital partner, you are you as a borrower might be taking that risk. And choosing the right capital partner protects you in many ways, because the capital partners that consider this, I mean, everything we do in business has a risk associated with it. So as long as your capital partner has assigned a risk tolerance to this activity, then you are in great hands. So me, like Mundo, do you lend on transactional yourself or Morby methods?
No, I mean, for me, it's usually a hybrid between, either just funding it myself or, partnering with
No, no,
other
but
people.
others Morby deals.
No, I don't have the stones to do that because I've seen how much stuff goes wrong.
Yeah.
I just
So you
don't.
heard
I
it
like
from
to
the man
I like to
himself.
control the
Yeah.
flow of things, and
So,
that's not a role where I can be in the driver's seat. So like, I
fair
just
enough.
don't play in that space.
I got you. So so we are a DSCR lender. I'm a hard money lender, and I lend on transactional deals, including Morby. So to give you a small scenario, one of our deals went south because one of the very popular transactional lenders, without naming names, I'll tell you, and they didn't do anything wrong. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus here, but it's
Yeah.
their style that they usually send a proof of fund or with your company's name on it. Okay. And it's been very popular in sub 2. And a lot of people do that. So they did that with one of our lenders, but in that scenario, they were a Morby method transactional lender. They were not wearing the hat of a regular transactional lender. So what ended up happening is our DSCR lender qualified that account, because that's what lenders do. They are going to approve that account for funding. So when the down payment hits at the time of closing, the down payment has to come from that account and that account only. So, of course, the account was qualified under XYZ LLC, which belonged to the borrower for funding, but the actual LLC was in the name of ABC because it was Transactional Lenders LLC. They just changed the name of the LLC on the statement and sent the statements over because that is their standard style. So when the wire hit on the closing day, after everyone signed, when the wire hit, the wire came from ABC LLC. It came from the right account, like 1234 account number, but it came with the wrong name on the wire. So they denied the wire, canceled the whole transaction, and I almost lost my like face with the lender because I have a very close relationship and I have multiple files with them. So be very careful who you are working with and how you are putting this whole thing together. Okay, that's one thing I would like to highlight here. But great job, like we are definitely on the same page there. So now let's switch gears a little bit. We spoke about the capital stack. We spoke about the legal aspects of it. When you do Morby method deals, why do sellers say yes? Like why Morby method deals make a great creative structure?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, before I address that, Jay Holder in the side chat, who's, he's actually done more Mormon methods than I have. He's done over like 225 or something like that. So he's a great resource in the community. And he brought up a good point here that said that a lot of lenders have terms in their agreement that you cannot change the LLC structure without, it's usually legalese, right? It's like you cannot assign member interest in the LLC without lender consent. So that is something that you need to consider as far as the loan terms of the documents. It's pretty common actually for lenders to have that. So that highlights, another potential risk in the transaction. Now, who's going to know? When you're making changes to the LLC, no one's going to find that out. But when they will find that out is when shit hits the fan, and then they're going to come after you, right? Like that's usually when things happen, when they start digging in and doing an investigation and all that stuff. So, like, you need to consider the risk involved, especially if you see those terms in an agreement. At that point, you're making, you need to, I'm here to like help educate like what's right, what's wrong, and what's gray area and all that stuff and point that stuff out. But you have to make a calculated risk on whether or not you're willing to do that. In some cases, when you cross the line, it is fraud. In some cases, it's a simple violation of the agreement, kind of like sub two. But I think it all comes back to intent, right?
Yep.
And if you're having a conversation, like I've had conversations with lenders where they have told me, hey, if you want to change ownership after closing, that's perfectly fine. I have those conversations recorded. A worst case scenario, I can fall back. Now, it may or may not hold up, but I can at least fall back and say, hey, this guy, this lender, representative of your company told me that it was okay to do this. How am I supposed to know otherwise that it's not? Then an attorney will say, well, did you read the terms of the agreement? I don't care what this guy said, but there are some things there that you can help protect yourself. But if they have those terms in the agreement, like you are taking a risk by doing something like that. So just another thing to consider on that end. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on the tangent. I just forgot the question that you asked. Now, what was your question again?
My question you're asking, or Jay?
Yeah, your last question that you asked.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah. So no, I was just saying, why do sellers say yes to deals,
Oh, yes, yes,
Morby
yes,
deal?
yes.
But I love, I mean, so on the just to close the loop on your last point, we actually are in communication with some lenders that have done Morby methods for some of our borrowers. They actually highlighted a paragraph in their paperwork showing me exactly what Jay was showing earlier. So very, very important point there. Great. But yeah,
Yeah.
so why would sellers say yes for something like this? Why would they stay on as a lender?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of reasons, right? A lot of the deals, and I'm not saying all of them. There's some deals that they're interested right out of the gate. Sometimes they even say it in their listing description. They're open to seller finance. Now, a lot of times it could be a situation where it's on market for 100 days and the thing is just not moving. I don't think it's, normally it's not anyone's first choice to do seller financing. They want to usually get out underneath it unless it's a tax play. But even there, there's some questions about using that as a tax play. I don't ever make tax recommendations because there's a I think there's a strong argument to make that a seller who sells the property under the context of how a Morby method is structured should not be recognizing that under an installment sale. That's my position. So I don't, if they want to do that and file their taxes that way, that's on them. I'm not telling them as part of my pitch to get it under contract that you're going to be able to get tax benefits on an installment sale by doing this structure. I don't believe that to be true. I've talked to IRS agents that don't believe that to be true. I do know sellers that have decided to do that and they haven't had any problems, but they also haven't been audited, right? So it all comes
Yeah.
down to what happens when you get audited, what happens when there's an investigation and someone defaults. But a lot of times sellers are, it's because they're in a pain point. They want to get rid of the property. They know that they're not going to be able to do it or get the price that they want. It's usually sellers that want retail price. They are willing to do seller financing, but they want their number, right? And they want a large down payment. They're not going to do it for 5% or 10%. It's usually the people that are like, okay, if you're giving me 40, 50, 60% down, I'm willing to do it and carry a little bit on the back end, especially with someone who's got high equity. Let's say they bought a property for 100K 10 years ago and now it's worth 400. You put yourself in their shoes, like they're not really out of pocket any money. It's really true equity that's upside. So they're willing to do seller financing. So but that I'd say generally speaking, that's probably the top reason why most people are willing to do it is just on market
So,
deals. And that's a lot what I target.
so what you mentioned about the tax benefit to the seller, I just want to try, I mean, because I have a different understanding. So if someone, so a seller is keeping 25% of their money in the deal, now they have converted their equity into an installment sale scenario. And
Yes.
installment sale scenario applies, and in that scenario they are getting paid every year and they pay taxes on the amount they received every year, if at all that is all their profit. If their cost basis is higher and portion of that 25% falls under their cost basis, then they don't pay taxes on the cost basis part, they only pay taxes on the gains. Isn't is that, I mean, did I misunderstand what you said? Because you mentioned they don't get tax benefit.
Well, I think this is at least my opinion, and from talking to some other people that are in the IRS. Uh, Yes, a typical installment sale. That's the way it works in seller financing. Normal, like first position seller financing. You're only going to get taxed on your like gain that you actually receive in that year, right? So if you spread
Yeah.
out your gain, which is what seller financing is, you're spreading out your financing or the amount of money you're going to receive every year over a long period of time. It's kind of like winning the lottery. You give you the option. I haven't won it, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they give you the option like, do you want to get taxed now, one lump sum, or do you want to recognize that over
Spread it
time?
over
So when
30 years.
you make that decision to get it now, you're going to get the max, hit on taxes versus having it over 10, 20 years. You're going to end up retaining a lot more. And that's the concept of an installment sale. The part that I think that, um, again, I take no position on negotiating this. I just use other tools to negotiate because I do know a lot of sellers that have classified this as an installment sale. That's their risk, not mine. I don't care. Like that's for them to figure out. It's not my role to be pitching that anyways, but it is my
Yeah.
problem if I pitch that to them, they go and file it as an installment sale, then they get audited, they
Right.
have problems, then they're coming back and pointing the finger at me, and they could sue me because they could say,
Yeah.
this was the reason why I did this deal, and you convinced me to do this
Yeah.
whole structure because I thought I was going to get tax benefits and you screwed me, right? So like I just stay out of it. But essentially, when I was talking about buying the property outright in that first transaction, that's what you're doing. So from like if we get into like what I would think the IRS position would be is okay, let's look at the HUDs in this first transaction. the property was purchased and the cash went to the seller, right? Whether they physically received it or not, it doesn't matter. If you think about the whole like 1031 exchange concept, it doesn't matter whether you receive the cash or not, right? There's still some tax liability there on gains. And in this scenario, you as the buyer purchase a property on paper on that HUD, 100% of the equity is going to the seller. Now, in a Morby method, the seller on their own accord in a separate and distinct transaction on a second transaction has decided to do a business loan arrangement with the buyer to provide funding for which was really, what we're calling the seller financing, right? That's really what it is. So
Right.
from a legal or like a tax perspective, it's really like, okay, you purchased the property, the seller got equity, and the seller on their own accord made the decision to provide a loan to someone else. And it just happens to be that that loan that went to someone else was the buyer, right? But that is a taxable event. And my position would be that you would be taxed if you were to get audited at 100% of the gain because you on paper received 100% of the funds. Like whether it physically hit your bank account or not, it doesn't
Then
matter.
you
That's not,
reinvested those
you
in
reinvested those funds
corporate
into something
environment
else.
or
Because
love it.
if you sold a property outright today and you took those funds and then invested in crypto, which I'm not recommending you do that. That was the first thing that came to mind. And you invested in crypto, the IRS is not going to care that you did that, right? They're still going to tax you on all those gains. And that's exactly how on paper, because that's all they're going to go off of. What is it legally on paper? The HUD is the legal document that shows what happened on the transaction. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's now
Yeah,
if I was going to do it on an installment sale, hmm, I would argue the heck out of my position, but I'm probably not going to win, honestly, in an
yeah.
audit. That's why I just fully like, don't even bring it up. I'm not even going to put myself in that position of risk.
This is amazing. I love it. I'd not thought about that, to be very honest. But this is so because it's a second transaction, it is not part. I mean, if it was part of one transaction, maybe they could make
Yeah.
that work. I don't know, but it's a question for your CPA. But great. Thank you for that answer. Okay,
Yeah, for sure.
so but if you don't use that as a tool, so switching gears a little bit, if you don't use tax as a tool to convince a seller to do something like that, um, what other tools would you use if you are in a negotiating position
In
to
in what
negotiate
way?
a Morby method?
I mean, a lot of times the deals I'm targeting, like I'm usually sending out offers at scale and I'm just seeing what bites. I'm just seeing is there an interest in um an arrangement where they're open to seller financing. And then
Okay.
after that, it really comes down to terms. If I know they're interested in seller financing, it just comes down to can we agree to terms? Like it's that simple. And there's obviously, well, there's a lot more to it that goes back and forth in that whole negotiation process. But it's really like that's the first question I'm trying to figure out. Are they willing to do seller financing?
Okay.
So I'm usually targeting leads that have high equity. That's usually what I'm targeting because those are the people most likely to say yes to seller financing.
And I mean, not to put words in your mouth, but most of the times, sellers that are willing to do seller finance in a situation like this, specifically Morby method, where the transaction is split into two transactions, there may not be a tax advantage whether sellers know about it or not. Uh, More than likely, they are doing it because you are able to pay the market value, and in today's market, especially, they are not getting that on the market potentially. Would you
Yeah,
say?
I mean they could very well in a lot of cases get higher return by doing
Okay.
this type of transaction versus just selling it and cutting the floor 30% off the price and getting rid of it, right? They get to retain that 30% and get the asking price they want.
So when you buy a Morby method, what now, especially in 2025 environment, you have interest rates that are higher. You're doing a DSCR loan at 7% or mid sixes if your credit is really good. Um, On top of that, you have a seller finance note that is basically adding another payment on top of your mortgage payment. So with that kind of monthly payment, what type of exit strategy? I mean, I'm assuming your portfolio is in Texas.
What's that?
Your portfolio is majority of your portfolio is here in Texas.
No, I have a decent amount in Indiana. I'm actually in Indianapolis. That's where I live now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
No, I have one property in Texas, but it's a sub two deal, which I
okay.
freaking hate and I don't want, but that's a different
So
story.
in Indiana, what do you, I mean, what is your favorite exit strategy and why?
For
For
me,
mortgage.
it's usually just buy and hold. Like that's usually what I do. It's not right or wrong, or it's just, personal preference. I mean, buy
No,
and
but
hold is
I'm talking
mainly.
about within holding. Is it long-term rental, co-living, short-term rental? What is it that
Yeah,
your
long
favorite?
term. Sorry. Yeah, long term. It's pretty hard to find deals at cash flow for Morby Methods specifically, depending on
Exactly. Yeah.
the capital stack, but I'm usually negotiating really, really low seller finance payments. So that's the biggest hang up on, getting them to say yes. It's because I'm asking for very, very low down pay or very, very low monthly payments.
Okay, beautiful. All right. What, so we spoke about the structure, the risks, the potential exit strategy, and the cash flow. If someone were to scale this model, what kind of infrastructure that, I mean, they should be looking at, I mean, in terms of property management, attorneys, uh, anything else you can shed some light on.
As far as, excuse me,
So,
sorry, I've
because
been sick
here
the
the
past
reason
couple
I
days.
asked this, I'll give you a little more background. No worries. So when you're talking, so I manage a large portfolio of wraps because we purchased, I mean, a decent amount of sub two in the last few years. So when we manage a wrap uh, in our portfolio, lot of management in terms of managing sellers' underlying debt comes into play. That was never part of my plan before when I got into real estate because everything I purchased before sub 2 was all conventional or DSCR loans. So I never had to manage, I never thought that it was going to be a big job. So as part of Morby method, managing sellers' debt and like the legal aspects around it and sellers, I mean, I don't know, idiosyncrasies come into play. How do you manage Morby deals like when you scale them? Like, do you like seller finance payments or I
Yeah,
mean, do you
yeah.
work with a
I
third
mean,
party servicing company? Yeah.
I guess there's stuff that I do that it just like to me it's just common sense, but sometimes people just don't know it. Like, but I mean, obviously, hopefully people know. Like, if I have a seller finance payment, it's just set up on like auto draw. Like, if let's say you had 100 seller finance payments, like why on earth would you want to sit there on the last day of the month and issue 100
Yes.
ACH payments out of your bank account? Like that wouldn't make sense at all. So setting just doing stuff like that, setting it up on an auto. um, I don't really have conversations with my sellers at all. They get their payment, they leave me alone. That's it. If I want to, if you wanted to have a relationship with them, that's fine. But I don't ever hear from my sellers. I guarantee you, I would hear from my seller if the payment didn't go through, though. So, I mean, as long as you are managing cash flow, I think the hard part about scaling is managing your debt, your total debt capital stack.
Yeah.
If you're like getting to a position where you are just running from one over leverage to another, I think it can be very dangerous if you don't have a capital plan for when those loans are maturing. Like you need to understand if you have loans due for 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, like 3 years comes up a lot quicker than you think, and you need to have a
Yep.
plan for that when you are exiting, right? Like, do you have a loan maturing? Like for me, for example, I have a loan maturing. It was the first Morby method I did in sub two. It was a 3-year balloon, which was not smart, and it's an $88,000. It was an interest only note, and so I don't do notes like that anymore, obviously. But I have this looming $88,000 note that's going to be due next October. I have to have a plan for that to pay that
Yeah.
off, right? So whether that's refinancing the underlying lien, obviously I have to make sure that property has appreciated enough, which right now it hasn't. You know, the market has been pretty soft over the past couple of years. So that's one on my list that I know like there could be some challenges. I'm going to have to find a way to fund that or
Yeah.
replace that seller finance note with a second position or whatever, right? Like there has to be a capital plan for all of these notes and just really tracking it. Um, Monique here in the side
Yes,
chat,
I was
she's got a ton of experience and she has scaled significantly way beyond me. And she has a full team that manages everything. She's actually starting, well, not her, but her, well, sometimes her, hopefully not long term. Her team is now starting to manage a lot of my properties
oh,
here in
fantastic.
the local Indianapolis area because I've gotten to the point where I was in my own way. You know, I thought that no one was going to do it as good as me. No one is going to care like the owner cares, right? Like I'm going to put in an effort that no one will do. And it got to the point where things were just getting missed, just too much on my plate. I'm focusing on other things. It's really not a good effective use of my time for me to be managing properties directly. And so instead of having someone readily available, because if you have ever filled properties before, like you have to answer the phone like
Yeah.
then. Because if you think about, you know, for people here that maybe whenever they lived in an apartment or if you still do, whatever, you're searching for a place to live. You're looking at 10, 15, 20 different places. And it's sometimes can be about whoever picks up the phone first. And if I'm getting to a tenant, prospective tenant, 2, 3, 4 days later, like they're gone, like they're ghosting me, like they've already gone on another opportunity, they've already found another place to live. So you have to be on it. And I was getting in my own way and I ended up being the worst employee and I fired myself. So I got to the point where, and it cost me so much money. I've had like, Monique's helping me like close the gap on my vacancies, but I was well over like 12 grand a month in vacancies. That was like coming out of my pocket. Like, and I'm just stroking checks to pay the mortgage. And it just got to the point, it's like, okay, like I'm being a cheap ass by stepping over a dollar to pick up a penny by like managing my own portfolio. Yet I'm freaking bleeding 10 to 12 grand a month. Like the logic in that does not make sense, right? When you take a step back and look at
Stay,
that.
stay in your lane.
Yeah, yeah. So I started, you know, and sure enough, you know, someone plugs in and things are starting to get filled. So I
Nice.
think it's you know, obviously team. You can't scale without a team. You're going to have to get
Yeah.
the resources that you need in place. And sometimes when you're in a position where you don't have the funding for it, you just have to buck up and be the team. Like you have for a period of time. I think the problem is I was in that period of time too long and I should have offloaded it sooner than I did. So, but it's tough when you don't have the funding. You just got to figure it out and you just got to wear all the hats and don't sleep and get after it. And, you know, there gets to a point where when things are hard like that, that's where a lot of people quit, right? Or they just stop growing. And, you know, you can either decide to push past it and continue to grow or just stop and downsize.
So for you to buy a Morby method, what numbers, I mean, what is your typical ideal buy box in a way where how much does it have to cash flow after paying everything?
Yeah, so I actually built my own software. So it's an underwriting software that matches to buy boxes in real time.
Okay.
And so like that's what I use now. So like I have a profile that and it's not just like a JPEG, it's like an actual software where it has my buy box. So when people underwrite deals, it'll match against my buy box and tell them like in real time what the score is.
Hmm.
But typically, what I'm looking for is, you know, $100. I'm okay with zero cash flow up to like $200, $300 for single family. I'm starting to move away from single family just because, you know, it's just I'm just
Yeah,
not
it
having fun with
makes
it,
sense. Yeah.
honestly. But I do partner with people nationwide. So if people are looking to close Morby methods, I will help them out as long as they're like the operator. And like I don't want to touch another property like ever again, personally. I'm just at the point where I'm like, oh, now there's still properties that I'm still operating myself. And it sucks, but I'm in the transition of kind of like moving that stuff over, but I have no desire to buy any more or operate any more properties.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to partner with people nationwide if they want to take on that burden for sure.
Awesome, awesome. So, last but not the least, we all know that you have a fantastic masterclass to teach how Morby methods work, stay within the legal bounds, and a lot of that knowledge you shared on this podcast for free. Thank you so much for that. But what specifically, like what type of value people will get if they were to come to your masterclass?
Yeah, I mean, it really what, and I'm actually working on, it'll probably be done in the next like 2 weeks where, so am offering it for sale as far as like on like the recordings. And what it had been is, so I've done two workshops so far. The first one was in Pigeon Forge, the second one was in Indianapolis, and I'm actually breaking it up into like bite-sized modules, and I'm actually going back and refilming certain things because in the workshop, people have questions and that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
you kind of like lose focus on the direction that you were trying to go. So I'm breaking it down into like 7 to 10 minute videos because previously my recordings were like, here you go, here's 10 hours of our workshop, and it's
Yeah,
like, who's
I
gonna
do.
watch a 10-hour video, right? Um, so that'll be done in the next couple of weeks, but essentially I'm just going in the weeds of training people A to Z. You get the contracts, the underwriting, basically everything I know as part
Yeah,
of that. And the people that are in that, they also get lifetime access to future workshops
those
that I
resources.
run too. So it's not
Oh,
just like a
okay.
one and done. People can come and continue to participate. And what I'm actually looking to do in the future is I kind of want to move it to just a online course, but then
Yeah,
the in-person experience is just getting together to like do actual deals. Like we get
yeah,
people in the same room and we're just like doing deals.
nice.
So that's kind of like the direction that I want to like move that, because there's just the individual course is going to have everything so polished, and because I'm going back and refilming things, that when person shows up, like they're already armed with all the knowledge, and then we
Yeah,
can just like actually do deals. Because ultimately, that's what everyone wants is they want to do deals, right? They want to
yeah,
take the knowledge, because you could hire someone like Jay. I don't know what he's charging, 3 grand, 2,500, 3 grand. He's gonna TC the deal for you, right? Like he'll help you through the deal start to finish. What he's not gonna do, like he'll probably give you education, but what he's not gonna do, he's like not gonna hold your hand because
yeah,
he doesn't have time for that. Like if you want, I'm sure he would hold your hand, but you ain't gonna pay 3 grand. Like
yeah.
that number is gonna be significantly
Pretty
larger because he
high.
doesn't have time to lay down, the 20 hours of groundwork that needs to happen for you to understand everything A to Z. And that's really what the workshop is for people to understand it A to Z. But I don't like TC transactions. That's for, I leave that stuff for
Right.
Jay for
And
him to do that.
uh, just uh, on a closing note, like if someone were to partner up with you, how does a partnership look like, and how do they get in touch with you for a deal that they, I mean, do they have to bring the deal, you bring the deal, or what are the terms of the partnership?
Usually I'm just taking a chunk. I can't necessarily say that there's a default, like, hey, I'm taking, 50% of every deal or something like that. It really depends. I don't have like this cookie cutter thing. It depends. Like, okay, are you sponsoring the loan? Are you going to be the operator? Like, that all looks different. What resources do you need from me? Like, so it really just depends. But people can reach out to me on Instagram. Just my name, type in my name.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. Man, this has been amazing. I learned a ton personally. Thank you for, I mean, sharing all these resources that, I mean, I know you teach in a master class. I hope everybody got a lot of value from this. I would love to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask Mundo. I do have a deal I want to show you guys before we close today. It's a 25-unit apartment complex out of Houston that I'm a partner in, and we are trying to. We have, I would say, we have structured it a hybrid Morby method, so to say, for co-living operators. And But before that, let's look at people and okay. Yerzan, go ahead.
Hey, Mundo, thanks again. Chai, thank you. Thank you, brother, for doing this. Mundo, I have three questions. The first is gonna be when you structure seller finance portion, the backside, right? When you structure, basically, what's the I would say rule of thumb for you? Is it like 30 years ammo? What's the interest rate? Like, is it like interest only or principal only? And what's the minimum balloon payment? Because obviously they won't let you like, they're not gonna do like 30 years kind of balloon and stuff. Uh, what's the minimum balloon payment? I mean, balloon time frame you would structure as a seller finance portion?
If we're talking about single family, I wouldn't go below 7 years. Like I think
Mhm.
anything less than 7 years, you're probably way too over leveraged. So the 3 years that I mentioned, like I'm shit out of luck on that one. Like I'm gonna have to figure that out. But that's just part of learning, right? I wouldn't go below 7 years. I don't do anything amortized. The monthly payment is really whatever I negotiate the monthly payment to be. Usually, I'm starting with $100 as my monthly payment in single family, and I don't even frame it as like an amortization because you can't even calculate that. Usually, a lot of times, if you try to calculate $100 monthly payment, it's like 90-year amortization or something crazy like that. I really focus more on what the deal can afford, and I put it back on them. It's like, okay, well, hey, tell me about the comps in this area. Okay, what can you get on rent, right? And I kind of, share like what those numbers look like. It's like, hey, if this, I would love to pay you more, but if this property is only pulling in, 1,500 in rent, like there's only so much I can pay you. It's not logical for my seller finance payment to be 1,700 and
Yeah,
I'm only getting 1,500, and then I have a loan for the DSCR that I have to service as well. Could I get it under contract right now at this? Yeah. In 6 months, you're going to be like asking why I'm going into foreclosure, though. So, like, why would you want to set this up for failure? Let's set this up in a way that allows me to be able to pay the bills, right? You don't want to have to worry about this every month. Like, and that's how I structure it. And I usually start off with the low down payment, and then I work my way up through negotiation. I never have my starting point be where I am willing to go to the end. What I mean is, like, I don't start, if the deal says that I can only do 50% cash a seller, I'm not starting at 50%. I'm starting at like 30%. So when they laugh at me about this $100 monthly payment, I'm like, okay, well, I sent in my offer for 30%. How about I give you 40%? How about instead of the monthly payment, like I really need the monthly payment to be what it is. How about I give you more cash up front so you can capture that? Instead of getting it monthly, I'll give it to you more up front, and you'll just capture more cash up front. But I really need the
gotcha,
monthly payment to be where I'm at. So I just negotiate
gotcha,
like the lowest monthly payment as possible.
gotcha, brother. Thank you. The second one, you said you've done 80 deals so far, and all of them are buy and hold, or you wholesale them?
No, I don't do wholesaling. Some of that's been like a mix of like TC,
Oh,
buying
okay,
myself, consulting, like doing all that kind of stuff.
gotcha. The
But
reason I
I've
ask is,
never wholesaled a deal yet
oh, okay.
as more method.
That's the as you know, I'm a wholesaler, I'm an acquisition guy, so that's why I'm like
Yeah.
I want to know understand the legality behind it as far as liability, as like if I'll wholesale, essentially I'm a middleman, so I'll just assign the contract to the end buyer, and the end buyer, if in case something happened, they default the payment and stuff, and they were abducted by aliens, whatever, right? They disappeared for whatever reason,
You
and
have liability. They're going to bring you in, and that's going to be
that's
your
what I'm
problem to
saying.
deal with. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Okay,
luckily for me, I have enough resources that if I want to wholesale a deal, wholesale per se, like I kind of, in a roundabout way, I kind of do wholesale in some of the deals that I partner with, like not really wholesale because I'm not assigning the contract, but I'm staying in the deal. Like maybe I'm like, hey, I'm bringing this deal. It's not on my market. I'll partner with someone, um, but I'm staying involved as a partner in the deal. And usually I can do it because they don't know what they're doing, and that's the resource I can provide. I can make sure that the transaction goes smoothly, and we can actually close because the buyer usually or the other person has no idea what they're doing. So that's the role I play because I have those resources. So I don't necessarily have to wholesale. I can still structure it to where I can get paid, and then I can also get a piece of the deal and stay involved.
Gotcha. And last but not least question is going to be, you touched the tax type of thing. So I've got a question. Let's say I'm an end buyer. I bought Morby, and I did cost segregation, right? I waived, if it's possible, I heard it's possible that like in the first year I can waive like 7 years of taxes, like right off the bat. Is it true or not? If I do
Say that
that,
again.
for the cost seg, I do like 7 years depreciation, 7 years or 5 years or 6 years, whatever. Like the big chunk of money in the first year, I'll be able to waive taxes. I heard that. I don't know. I'm just checking with you. And if I do that, if I sell the property, how the tax is going to be counted for that property for the
Well,
end
you're
buyer?
definitely not going to be able to do a cost segregation if you're wholesaling, right? Because you're not really the
No, no,
owner of
no,
the
no.
property. You,
I'm an end buyer
yeah,
as an end buyer.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, a Morby method is just like you still own the asset. It's really just an acquisition strategy. It doesn't change the fact that you own the property. So you can still do a cost segregation study um, on any property that you buy. But if you sell it early, you're telling by doing the cost segregation study, you're accelerating the essentially the expenses that you're able to capture within of the property within the cost segregation study, and you're accelerating depreciation. So if you sell the property early, you have to pay depreciation recapture, is what they call it. And you'll have to be taxed on that benefit that you took that you really shouldn't have because now you've sold the property.
Okay, sounds
So
good, brother.
you will have a penalty. Like I have properties right now that I'm
Mhm.
like, dude, I just want to sell this thing like anybody, like with a heartbeat. If you want to take this thing, please take it. But I can't because I've done cost segregation studies and I would have a huge tax bill and I'm not walking away at a loss on any
Okay,
property. So like it's just one of those things where it's just like, all right, well, I'm just in it for the long haul. Like you just ride it out and just that's what it's gonna be.
gotcha. Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much. You're the best, bro. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Yarzan. Armando, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up, Mundo? I'm Armando. Armando
Hey, how's it
Capo.
going?
Going good, brother. Going good. Yep. And what's up? What's up, Power Hour family? It's been a cool journey, man. I'm a 3-year Gator, and I've actually been hanging out with Chai in these underwritings for the past year, so it's been cool, man. And I have a couple questions. One is, I've been a connector in. I'm a connector for private money, and so I know you mentioned that you have a lot of resources. It's my question, and it's probably going to be a lot of other people's questions who watch this recording, right? Like, hey, are we able to provide funding for you as a connector? Because I'm asking that for myself, being that at some point I'm looking to become a fund manager. So is that something that can benefit you? Me coming in as whether I'm going to be a partner somehow, however, would be doing, the terminology on the if I'm coming in also on the operating agreement.
Are you asking about like me specifically, or are you asking about
Yeah,
um
yeah,
no,
you
I mean
like if
there's
I
a
if I were like, hey Mundo, I'm a
excuse me.
connector for funds, and I connected with a fund who can fund up to 500 million. Is that something that can benefit you, or you're like, hey, I'm already tapped out. I already have enough lenders. Thank you, for considering it.
I'd say it's probably the latter half, honestly. I mean, I already have like partnerships that are pretty much locked in.
That's what's up.
Not to say it's like I mean, I'm sure there may be a situation in the future where it's like I don't know. I don't say like no permanently to anything, but I do have partnerships that I trust and value already. So it's not like I'm just like, oh yeah, yeah, let me just start doing business with you, and we don't really know each other
Uh,
yet, right?
so I'm asking for marriage, and we haven't even dated yet. My bad.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. I
yeah, pretty
forgot that.
much. You know,
Like, who?
if
I
I'm
get so
happily
excited.
married, right? You know, like why would I want to go and start wandering, right?
Yeah, I forget.
And
It's a
Armando,
process.
one thing to notice is he's not someone who raises a ton of money to buy things. He's actually, I mean, the whole point of doing Morby method is so that you don't have to raise a lot of money and sellers are your investors. So, I mean, your contribution is very valuable to a someone who is doing a multifamily deal and is looking to raise money for it. So different
Yeah.
type of situation here.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
definitely would say in the context of multifamily, if you had like if you were raising capital, I mean that's definitely something that makes sense. But to his point, like I'm raising capital from the seller, like I don't need the capital if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But as far as like a
Okay.
traditional like large raise, I think everyone could use partnerships
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
That
absolutely.
sounds that sounds good. Yeah, because they're a transactional funder. So I'm just like, hey. But I do have a second question. The
Yeah.
writing of the operating agreement, when you mentioned, the capital partner comes in, onto that operating agreement, does the TC write that up? Because eventually I'll be funding once I can build up my liquid, my liquid capital line of credit. And so I was curious about that. Does the TC write it up, or do we have to write up all the documentation of the operating agreement?
I'm not going to speak for other GCs, but they should not be put in that position to where they have to be. I mean, they
Okay.
really are just providing a third party service. They're not like a partner on your deal unless you make them a partner on your deal. Then that may be a different arrangement. But I think the standard expectation is that you're the one drafting your documents. And if you look at it from depending on the situation, I mean, if let's say like for me, for example, if I was a TC and you hired me for let's say 3 grand, like 3 grand isn't necessarily enough money for me to start taking risk and acting as your lawyer when I'm not your lawyer? And what if something happens in that transaction and it goes south? Guess where all the fingers are going to get pointed at? They're going to get pointed at me. So I'm like taking all this risk for $3,000 and I'm just like, no, no,
Yeah, that
thanks. But
makes sense. Yeah, and I've again, I'm a 30-year gator, right? And I've kind of been in and out. And a lot of persons are not understanding TCs as they got to do all the paperwork and then complete it and file it. Then I've actually talked to some TCs and they're like, a lot of people are expecting this from us, and that's actually not our role. So me, I got two different sides, right? It's like which one is it really?
yeah,
I'm actually going to be prepared myself to learn how to write these operating agreements so that the TC is just going to help me file. I don't want to put more of a burden, but I was just wondering, since this is for Morby method versus like double close or EMD, it's probably not as stringent of a process, or so many moving parts that if I were
So
a TC, I probably wouldn't want to even be involved in it.
yeah.
yeah, I think honestly, I think it's because of how Pace had framed things for a long time. I really don't hear him do this a lot now, but he used to basically frame things as like TCs are the savior to everything. You don't know how to do it, get a TC, and it's like
Yeah,
that's not exactly how it works. You
exactly.
do have to do something on your end and take responsibility as the buyer. You can't just like get a deal or get someone interested and just send it off to your TC and let them, basically do everything for you.
Mhm.
Um, so that is a common misconception that a lot of people have had, and I think it is because Pace had placed such a high emphasis on the importance of a TC, which it is important, but they are not there to like literally do everything for you.
So TCs are there to help you literally coordinate the transaction exactly as it states. They're not your lawyer. They're not there to advise you on what you should and shouldn't do or what contracts you should and shouldn't use for those things. So that leads me to one question, Mundo. As part of your master class, do people get any paperwork that you had your lawyer draft that can be a general guideline or a starting point for morbid deals?
Yeah, no, I do provide my contracts as part of
Okay,
that, resource package, and we go over how to fill those out and
nice.
what it looks like with examples of through a case study of like what some of the deals that I've done, that kind of stuff.
Okay, okay. Let's take one more. Levi.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming and sharing all of this info. We really appreciate it. My first question is with everything that you've done and you've learned in terms of not just transactions, but also working with a team and everything on your properties. For 2026, will you be doing much of the same and just kind of staying the course, or are there other projects or directions that you're entertaining for 2026? That is first. And second, you've mentioned your portfolios. Are you interested in co-living for your next properties instead of single family? Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, good questions. I absolutely hate co-living. I freaking hate it. Like, I never want to see another co-living property ever again. Anyone that tells you they love co-living, you've immediately told me you don't operate co-living. Like, because co-living is not fun. Now, there are probably certain situations like Ingrid Hernandez, for example. She has a house in Arizona that's a like a almost like a
Incubator.
entrepreneurial like Shark Tank think tank type of house.
Yeah.
That's so cool where the tenants there, they have like they even have like courses and like business, like kind of like a little mini mastermind of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that live in the house. That to me is so cool. I would love to, if I was going to do something, I would do something like that. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. But as far as the normal co-living, typically speaking, you're dealing with the lower class quality of tenant. No offense, it usually is. And you are multiplying headaches. One, you're multiplying headaches because it's not a single family home or it's not a duplex. It's 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a house. Then you're also multiplying headaches because now they're all in the same house sharing resources, right? Quite literally sharing sometimes restrooms and kitchen space and all that kind of stuff. So there are so many things that can go wrong. And I've had enough headaches just from one co living property. I'm just like, no, thank you. Um, but honestly, as far as like 2026, I'm not looking to buy any single family homes outside of partnerships. Like, I mean, I probably will still buy some, but outside of just partnering with people, my main focus, honestly, is just business activities because I'm a lot better at generating income with that than buying single family homes. Let's say
Yeah.
you buy a single family home and it cash flows, $100 a month and the HVAC breaks down. How many years is it going to take you to cash flow that when your HVAC just broke? A lot of years. And to me, like I don't really like single family anymore because of that reason. I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It was a really cool t-shirt. It fits well. But like I'm kind of moving on to something else. So I'd say multifamily and then just continuing working on like the software that I'm building. Like that's what I'm spending the majority of my time on now is building the software, helping people in the community, helping them learn how to underwrite, providing education, doing that kind of stuff. So that's probably going to be my main focus in next year. And I've been a part of some multifamily um, projects, just providing resources that I have. And that's worked out a lot better. Like that one project I'm a part of is going to provide way more benefit than all the headaches combined that I've had to go through just to get, that measly $100 a month, cash flow.
Yeah. No, so
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I love that
absolutely.
answer. I mean, anybody who's scaling is going to hate co-living very quickly. That's my answer to co-living. Like you cannot scale co-living without, I mean, I don't know the way, where we are headed. I mean, I've seen co-living work really well in cities like Austin, where property prices have gone up so much that nothing cash flows. So, I mean, if we have to do it in the future, maybe we'll have to suck it up and do it, but that won't be my first preference. I would rather build my portfolio while having active income somewhere else and use real estate for depreciation purposes. That's just my personal preference from what it sounds like Mundo and I on the same page there. Yerizan, you have
Oh yeah.
one last question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chai. Mundo, I came across one of your posts and sub too. You said before you even get the property on the contract for Morby, you present to the seller promissory note by being like super transparent and how the transaction is gonna be, and you do that. And in your workshop, would you provide that for us? And
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
for
to the
sure.
point.
Yeah, no, I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
the reason the reason why is because there's a lot of confusion. Real estate agents typically hate investors anyways, and they really hate wholesalers, right? And so when you try to tell them, at least in my experience, there's people that do it differently, and they do it very well, successfully doing it a different way. It's just my personal preference to do it this way because I'm giving them all the documentation up front. I want to know right now, before we go under contract, is this deal going to close? Yes or no? I've never once, out of all the Morby methods I've gotten under contract, not closed because of, in my opinion, because of that. I don't have surprises that happen later down the road because we've already talked about everything as we've gotten it under contract. Full transparency between me and the seller and the agent. We know how all this works. There's no surprises. So, where things can go wrong, at least from the seller and agent perspective, you get it under contract. First of all, if you just get it under contract, when you just have the standard purchase contract, they're going to be like, well, what about the seller finance stuff? I don't use an addendum to my purchase contract. I don't, we probably don't have time to talk about that, but I just don't think, I think that could be potentially mortgage fraud when you do that. Real quick, I mean, just a lot of lenders, when I say a lot, I mean like 100%, they will say, hey, send over your purchase contract and all associated addendums. And when you have an addendum to the contract and you purposely withhold that addendum, gosh, I mean, if that's not fraud, I don't know what is. I mean, you're like hiding documents from the lender intentionally on the front end. Like, you want to talk about intent, like you are really going out of your way to purposely, withhold that information, which is why I don't structure it that way. But anyways, on the seller side, if you're just giving them a purchase contract, they're like, well, what about all these other terms? And you just say, oh, well, we'll get that signed before closing. What happens when you get to closing? And then now they see the documents and they're like, well, I didn't think, I thought I was in first position. I thought this was a land contract. Like, you have a whole bunch of those kind of conversations that I just have much higher success just getting it knocked out on the front end. Like, if this deal's gonna fall apart, I want to know now before I spend thousands of dollars getting an appraisal and like going through all this process. Like, let's just have it fall apart right now. That's always been my attitude, which is why I kind of have all the documents, and all the conversation up front. I'll walk the seller through it, the agent through it. Like, I'll do all that on the front end. So it takes me longer to get it under contract. And when I say longer, it's like a 30, 40-minute conversation. It's not the end of the world, right? It's not that big of a deal. But if there's any hesitation, I don't want the seller signing it because we're going to be in a long-term commitment. I don't want them on the fence already, like questioning their decision, because it's not going to work out long term if that's what's happening on the front end.
sounds good, brother. And what do you think about Jay Holder's comment in the side chat for the wholesalers? Like, we are getting not under the LLC, I mean, contract not under our LLC, but the LOI, but legality is going to be like, how am I going to assign? Are they going to go behind my back and stuff like that?
Let me read this. My
It's a
wholesalers
good,
don't get the
very,
contract
very
under
good,
their
very good point.
LLC. They get a signed LOI and sell it on the LOI. So the purchase contract is in the buyer's name. What's your question about that?
So as far as legality and liability, I'm a wholesaler. I'm a middleman. I'm not gonna be there, but I'll connect the seller with the end buyer, basically by assigning LOI. But I've never done it before, like
Yeah,
assigning
I mean,
LOI
for sure. I think you're
on
still
a
going to get
settlement.
dragged into a
Yeah, on a
into
settlement
a
statement,
lawsuit.
yeah, on a settlement statement, how it's gonna be like there is no, is it gonna be like JV agreement or assignment contract? Because I've never heard about assigning LOI to the end buyer.
I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that because I've never done that either. So I'm not going to start doing it. But if
Yeah,
that's how
it's
wholesalers
a good
feel
trick.
comfortable with it, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
good
you're
trick.
you're not assigning it, I guess, per se. But I think I guess, I
In
mean, I
my
would think you're
in
taking a
yeah, in
risk
my
by
name.
doing that.
Yeah, yeah, and my name is not there in contract. So if they go behind, if they go after somebody, I'm like kind of in a gray area.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, it's probably wholesalers that have a very strong relationship with existing buyers where they trust them. Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, I would think without seeing any paperwork of what that situation is, I
Gotcha.
would think that that would be some risk. But I think even in that scenario, even if you were assigning it through an LOI and not really assigning the contract as a wholesaler, you're still going to get sued if something goes south, in my opinion, because
Yep.
you were a
Yep.
party to that transaction. You were negotiating. You were the point of contact
Yep.
that whole
Yep.
time.
Gotcha, bro. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chad. Thank you,
Of
Mundo.
course.
Thank you, Jay. You
Hey,
guys are
Alex, did you have a
awesome.
question? I thought I saw you unmute yourself. But if not, man, this has been so good. It's so refreshing to see someone thinking like a true businessman I mean, especially when we talk to so many newbies that are running around going in directions that they don't even know what they're doing. This was so good. I learned a ton. I hope you guys got the same value from this. Reach out to Mundo. I'm gonna drop his Instagram. It's just Mundo Sanchez, right? I think.
Yes, I think so. um,
Thank you so
can
much,
I?
Mundo. And I mean, I had a deal to share, but I'm going to share it in Underwriting Power Hour shortly. It's after Mundo said what he said about co-living. I'm kind of ashamed to share the deal.
I know people that
No,
are
no, I'm
killing
just
it co-living. It's just not
no,
my
no.
cup
So
of tea,
this is
you
this
know?
is very close to university. I'm just running out of time. Otherwise, I would. But
Yeah, yeah.
I have a deal I want to give you all an early access to. It's a 24 unit apartment complex near University of Houston. I have spoken to university program director regarding this, and they are working with Pad Split to fill up these bedrooms with co-living tenants, which are essentially students. So it's going to be a hybrid of student housing and co-living, whatever you call it. And the current ownership that I'm part of, they don't want to do pad split, and that's the only way for this area to fill up this. So I'm happy to share it in the Underwriting Power Hour. Those who are not part of it, please go ahead and join. I'll share the link here. And again, one more time, Mundo, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing. I mean, this was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, talk to you guys soon, and hope you have a great rest of the weekend. See you guys next Saturday.
See you, everyone.